I'm really glad that you are here to talk about this run for candidacy for the Chicago School Board. So, my first question for you is why now, and why this particular position in this particular body?
I love that question because, you know, if you know who Lorraine Hansberry is, a famous
Mm,
playwright that created A Raisin in the Sun, that
mm,
documents redlining and the history of redlining in Chicago and the streets that we live in. So to do theater is to also understand
come
history,
on. That's
also to
right.
understand culturally relevant information that you can use in a modern economy, not only in your art, but how you
Mm,
approach policy, knowing the history of redlining. This is not about shut up and dribble or shut up and rhyme. This is about using all of our gifts to
come
unlock
on.
a cross curriculum. These are things that I see in music where the DNC can say, we're going to use Little John to do the roll
Mm,
call, but not know
mm,
that Little John's parents are doctors and psychologists. And Little John is not only musically elevated, he's also educated. So
that's
if
right.
he can do the roll call, he can also help you reimagine policy. I often
Mm,
see artists used to amplify political message, but not invited into the institutions to help reshape what communities look like. Listen,
mm.
Stevie Wonder wrote a song, Happy Birthday to Ya. That's the Black Birthday song.
Yep.
John Conyers was trying to get a national holiday for Dr. King for 15 years. Stevie Wonder made that song and got the legislation pushed through in a year. So this is
Mm,
the power of art on
mm.
policy. And
Yes.
it's what I call cultural currency. And if we begin to use our culture, this is why I'm running. I would like to see our cultural currency for culturally relevant curriculum inside the halls of our schools. When you look
Mm,
at our school boards, Lurie, especially in Chicago, they're filled with the same kinds of people who end up robbing the system. I'm
mm,
running because I believe our school board in Chicago needs a diverse group of people. You got to have artists, scientists, educators, people in business and finance to have a robust school. And that's why
mm.
I'm running.
You know, you said so. First of all, I wish we had a drop. I mean, we need a mic drop sound effect because there were like 50, 11 different mic drop moments in everything that you just said. And I want to unpack them just a little bit. The idea that someone like Little John, brilliant in many, many ways, and yes, useful for the roll call. It was lovely. But the
Yes.
idea that someone with his intellectual prowess should also be invited to the table to help reimagine politics. We're seeing a lot of conversation right now about whether or not the Democrats are sufficiently talking to and with black men. And as someone who emotes as a black man, you live in the black man experience. You're from Chicago, which according to everybody in the Republican Party is the quintessential black experience or black city. What would it look like to have folks like yourself, to have folks like Little John, people who are living an authentic black male experience, however you may define that, to be invited to the conversation to reimagine what politics can do and looks like? And you gave us a tease of it when you were talking about what it looks like in the school space, but give us a sense as to how you think those voices, which are often used to amplify and to decorate the policies that are happening, what would it look like for you to have those voices involved at the communicating and negotiating of what our political platform should be? What would that look like for you?
Well, I think it looks like what it looks like now. I think what we have happening with black men critiquing the political system at the top, the presidential race, I think that's a great thing because
Mm,
now when you look at President Obama, when he says, what masculinity is or what masculinity is not, it's what he did was give black men a voice to say
mm,
what we want to see. And so now what we see is the Harris campaign saying, in our policy, we're going to put down apprenticeship programs for young black men. We're going to put more money into health care to discover how to combat diabetes and sickle cell and certain forms of cancer that black men suffer from the most. Now we're going to
mm,
have educational policies, cryptocurrency investments, dispensary. We need to be involved in the business of these dispensaries in our
right,
communities now.
right.
Now we see policy taking shape because of that critique. if we have, and this is why I'm running for school board, Lurie, if we had more civic engagement
Mm,
in the local school councils and student
mm,
government and learning about what to ask for in elementary school, high school, where are those political debates and people running for class president? We don't have that we had in the past. The issue we have is not the critique, it's when our voices are put in the forefront, what are we asking for? And I
mm,
and I see the Harris campaign now responding to what Black men are asking for. Now
mm.
what we have to do is take that to the Republican Party and say, look, this is what the Democrats are willing to offer. What are you guys willing to offer in this
Come on.
realm? I don't think look, and we want to, it's a natural sense to come out and protect your sister, your
Mm,
mama, your
mm.
wife. We come out and we do a bit of what everybody does with identity politics. Because Kamala is a Black woman, we want to tell everybody, shut up and get this woman in office. But one of the things I see in Chicago, we got Black folk from the governor's office on down to the mayoral office, to the
Come on.
prosecutor's office, and we still dealing with systemic inequities. We still,
Mm.
because we don't know what to ask for.
We're
We were
seeing the
told
same
to
thing
go
in
out
New
and
York
vote for
State.
these people and didn't know
Yes.
what to ask for. We got to put our ask up front. I see it happening. I see the Democrats and Kamala responding to it. Now we got to take those same asks to the Republicans.
Mm. And that to me feels like a complete process, right? Because what we often have is people saying, "Well, this party is this, that party is that," but there's never a let's put the descriptors to the side. And what are the policies? And to be clear, these are policies that she's had, like the apprenticeship policy. That's old. That's not
Yeah.
something that's new. But being able to say, "And here's how this policy will impact Black men," that's the next
Yes.
step, right? So having the down payment or the $50,000 tax credit for entrepreneurs, that's a part of her policy. It's been a part of her platform, but being able to say, and Black men, here's how that is going to make a difference for you. That is the next
Yes.
step. But you also said something that I think is important. Now that we see what one party is offering, what is the other party going to offer to counter? Because this is about negotiating for the power of our votes. And what you said about what's happening in Chicago, we got more Black elected officials in the state of New York than ever. But we also are not seeing necessarily how that is translating into receipts being brought home for the people. And part of that has a lot to do with, in addition to everything that you outlined, this idea that representation is sufficient. And my latest sort of evolution in this space, you mentioned evolution at the beginning, is that representation, racial representation, affinity, is not a civic skill, nor is it a civic virtue. Representation in and of itself is not going to get the schools fixed. Representation in and of itself is not going to get housing, property, possibilities enhanced, getting people actually into homes that they can afford. Representation is nice, it's a good first step, but we gonna need some translatable things brought back to the community in exchange for you having that position. And that is a level of civic sophistication that I think we as Black people are coming to in ways that perhaps we haven't before. We've been very protective of Black candidates. We want to, when President Barack Obama was in, I was one of the people who got criticized for criticizing him, and so I get it. We want to be protective, but at this point, we are now maturing. We are evolving, and I don't blame us, because from 1619 to 1964 Civil Rights Act is passed into law. We could get killed for having this conversation, so it ain't our fault we don't know. But now that we know we don't know, we gonna have to know. And so when it
Yeah.
comes to making that translating everything that you just talked about to the local level, I want to come back to your run for the school board in Chicago. A lot of times when we hear about folks with someone of your stature running for office, it's they're going to be state senator. They're running for president. They're running for governor. You chose school board. Why?
Yeah, I chose school board because it's what I'm passionate about. I've
Mm,
taken, the Grammys I've been able to earn, the Academy Award. None of that stuff is useful if I can't take it into the class. Let children hold it and say, "Now do you want to learn poetry? Now do you want to
mm,
learn narrative writing? Look, hold it." We just had a class of 6 to 10-year-olds yesterday that I was doing a poetry class, and when I said, "Have you ever heard the song Glory?" All of the children raised their hands and said, "We sing it for graduation. We sing it for our special, whatever the ceremony is." And I realized that, okay, now let me show you how to write something like that. And when I started to teach them narrative writing, I had 6 and 10-year-olds
wow.
engaged for 2 hours straight, just
Mm.
talking about themselves, their fears, what they love, what they need.
Mm.
And then I would hear their parents, I wish you would have this or that. I said, no, no, no. Listen to what your child is saying and let's deal with
Wow.
that. And I
Yeah.
realized that type of reparative writing is not happening inside our school walls. And
Mm.
this is what can lower violence. This is what can create de-escalation. This is what can help children in mathematics and in STEM when they go and say, we had a vocational program where we built the studio, but then the artists came and used it to make their album. And then the people in technology that are interested in technology help operate the studio. We can do
Right.
so much in the walls of our schools that young people are doing outside the walls of the schools. And so,
Mm.
my run is to say, there are a lot of children missing in our system. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
children didn't go back to school after the pandemic. A lot of children are not interested in the traditional way education is ran because it's ran like a prison. It is not
Mm.
ran like what education truly is in a modern society. That's why
Yeah.
I'm running to. And look, I'll tell you this, my campaign is funded by the community, by
Mm.
artists. Killer Mike gave to our campaign. My next
Mm.
door neighbor, Ready Freddy from Ready Freddy Cookies, gave. The plumbers gave. I am not sponsored by a union, the teachers union. I am not sponsored by outside Republican dollars. This is truly a community funded campaign. And the hardest conversation I ever had to have is when I had to ask my wife if I could borrow $50,000 to run for a position that paid
Mm.
nothing.
Wow. Wow. And I'm assuming
And
she
that's
said
and the
yes.
community's waking up.